Hi, librarian friends. This is Laura, and I wanted to show you a couple of little things in the diversity audit sheet I made. So I took this from a school system in New York, and they were doing ones, and I decided to use data validation to set all this up. So if you don't understand how the checkboxes and things work, if you go to data and then data validation, it will allow you to add things in a cell like a checkbox or a list of items. So those are the two things that I've used. So that's where all my checkboxes come from, and the list of items is for my genres, where I listed out my genres, or my genders. And you can kind of decide if you want to do it that way. The reason I did it differently for author and character is because I am probably not going to look super deep into like an author's identity, but I would like to see, I might want to see, how many books about Black boys I have versus books about Black girls, that kind of thing. So that's why I have those as checkboxes, because I can look at both. I can pull a report to look at both of those things. So I did want to show you kind of how the reports are pulled over here. So this is just a basic chart I've made. And these are from these are pulling from that fiction data set that I have there. So I'm pulling from that fiction data, and I'm pulling from the column where I check, whether a character, or I mean an author, this is an author, where I check that an author is male, whatever their gender is. And you put whatever it is that you want it to show in quotation marks like this. So because I'm doing a checkbox, I can do just quotation marks, and it's going to count anytime that column says M. This one's going to count anytime that column says F. And this one is going to count anytime that column says NB for non-binary. And I've done a similar thing with the checkboxes. So the difference for the checkboxes is, so we're looking at the column E on the fiction data, that thing's in my way, on this data tab, and it's counting anytime I have marked a checkbox. And so what it calls that is true. So that's what you would put to pull information about a checkbox. And the way that I have, I've set it up to count my total fiction, and then I've also set it up so that I can look per genre if I would like to. And I'm doing that because I know that there are disparities genre-wise, and so I want to see if those are showing up in my library, and if they are, maybe I need to buy more fantasy or science fiction that's diverse, because maybe all my diverse books are in my realistic fiction. So I'm going to pull genre stats as well, and the way that I do that is a count if S, so you can count multiple things. And I've done the same thing. We're pulling from the fiction data tab, and we're pulling from the C column. And if you see these little dollar signs right here, if you put those in front of a column letter, it will not change the column if you copy and paste this formula. So this allows me to make the formulas and then copy this whole thing and paste it for my next genre. And then all I have to do is change my genre name right here. So we're looking at column C, and that's where I put my genres in. And in column C, I'm wanting to pull anything that says realistic fiction, and then you put a comma, and you pull from the same sheet. But now we're looking at column D, and we're looking for gender saying M. So I'm pulling anything that already says it's realistic fiction that is by a male author. So that's essentially how I'm pulling two things at once. So you can see that I have 6 books total logged right now that have male authors. Only 2 of them are realistic fiction. Only 2 of them are science fiction. And so, obviously, the other ones are going to be in a different genre. And the way that these percentages work is based on the number that's down here. So My idea is at the end, I will put the total number of books that have been logged. So the total number of titles I own in fiction, not copies, titles is what I'm looking at. So I'll put the total number of my titles in my fiction section here. I've only put the number that I've logged just because that kind of helps me see like the percentage of what I've logged rather than showing me like some crazy 0.00 percentage while I'm logging. So I'm going to update that as I add books. And then over here, if you are in your data, you can set the filters and you could filter a genre. So if I want to clear all my filters and filter realistic fiction, it's only going to show my realistic fiction. So now I'm just going to select all of my realistic fiction, and down here it tells me what the count is. So I have 8 total books in realistic fiction. And then I can just take my filter off and go back here. And this says 18, but I actually only have 8. So I can change that to 8 so it'll show me the real number. I don't know why that says 18. I know I just copied it from something else. So my realistic fiction number is actually 8. So now it's giving me different percentages, right? Because it's pulling from the amount of realistic fiction books I have in my collection and showing me what the percentage is compared to the percentage of the total collection. So that's where my percentages have come from. And again, what I'm doing here is just using a sum formula. So this is the sum of this number, whatever the column is that you're making it for. So mine is D3. This number divided by the bottom number. And I have put those dollar signs there so that whenever I grab this right here and pull it down, it will copy this, like it will pull, it will divide it by the same number. Oh my gosh, I can speak, I promise. But it will change so that it's pulling from all these different columns, or all these different rows, I mean, but it will still pull from this number. So hopefully that makes sense if you're not used to using Excel formulas. That's how that works, and it's exactly the same in my book stats. So I have already changed it to 8 here, so it'll tell me out of 8 how many, like own voices. And I specifically logged diverse books for the sample so that you could see what it looks like when it, puts percentages in different areas. So I promise you 75% of my collection is not own voices. I feel like that is not even going to be close. But of the 8 I have logged, 75% of them are own voices. And I did that on purpose as well so you could see how it messes with the author stats, right? And I can do the same thing where I've set it so it's going to hold true to the columns that I want it to look at, and I can copy this, paste it over here, and all I would need to change is this specific section right here. So one thing that you don't have to do, but I started doing when I did my sample set to get used to this, is building in setting. I don't need to do this, but when I was looking for information on books, I found that this information was also very accessible to me, and I was just interested. Like, I'm interested to know how many books I have that are set outside the US in particular, and of those books, like, where are they set? So I started collecting this information, so I've just been making myself new rows every time I come across a new book. And I've been doing it for states, and that's just for fun. But since I'm already collecting the data anyway, I just thought it's there. I'm gonna take it and look at it. So what I do to pull this data is exactly the same, but because it's coming from a column that has multiple words in it, or could have multiple words in it, the difference is you have your column, but in parentheses, you put these little asterisks around whatever word you're looking for. So if you look at the data, the book, or like, this is a good one. So Love from A to Z, I put set in Qatar, has Pakistani and West Indian and Chinese and white. So I'm making myself some notes about like what the identities are. and I'm making a note about where it is set. And the setting note is going to show up in my setting. The other notes are just for me in case I want to know that for some reason. But this is going to pull that information straight from that column. So if I have any other books that are set in Qatar, those will show up right there as well. And I'm just doing the same thing where I'm going to put the total number, pull the percentages. I did put some region statistics just to see like how many books I have set in North America versus Europe versus, South Asia or something like that. So this is just a project of while I'm pulling the information and it's accessible, I might as well pull this information too. And it's something that I have wanted to know about my collection before, so I thought this was a good opportunity to do it. So that, I think, probably covers all of the things that you might need to know about how my sheet is set up. I am going to include, I have a little document that kind of gives me my process so that if I get lost in my process a little bit or I get to something that I'm not sure about, I can go back to that and remind myself what my process is. And two of those things for me are marking when an author or a character is not diverse, like there's no diversity present in the book for the main character. I'm only covering main characters, point of view characters. So anytime there's no diversity for a point of view character or a main character, then I'm going to click the no diversity thing, and I'm going to do it over here because I think that would be interesting to know, and it is very separate from clicking white or unknown because a character might be white but queer. So in that sense, I'm trying to collect the data of how much of my collection is diverse versus not diverse, and then I also want all of this other data that tells me how many books of each, identity I might have, where I might have holes, that kind of stuff. And the other thing is the unknown column. So I've been trying to train myself not to click white if I don't know the answer. Like if I don't know for sure that this character is white, then I need to click unknown. And because I can't assume that they're white because that is, problematic for sure. So I have an unknown column, and if I'm not sure about a character and I can't figure it out from my research, then I just click unknown. And that way I will know that I don't know. Like it's not made apparent in the book or in any information about the book. And so I'll share my document that has all of that information on it, and it has a couple of resources where I get information from, and then this video so that if you're having problems understanding how to do some of this chart work, hopefully this will help. All right, I hope you guys have fun diversity auditing.